This is recording 840-840. The name of this specific podcast is Listen Next 840. It is a part of my podcast series, Speaking to the CIA. You can find me at ChristinaStation918.com or SpeakingToTheCIA.com. Okay, so I'm going to continue. So this recording is going to be more decoding of her and her Manson occult stalking me all of my life, my friends and my family, and all about her pre-planning to do the World Trade Center attack and the Oklahoma City bombing. Okay? All right, so the Sun Deck, CL code on my Sun Deck, my house at 306 East Street, my mom and dad's house, okay, when I was little, the Sun Deck, okay, all right, so, more decode on the Sun Deck. I keep saying Sun Deck, Sundeck, okay, so the Sun Deck went off of the dining room, and it was a large white square, okay, okay, so there's more on this. So the Sun Deck also goes to DB Cooper. Okay, so you want to see all of my decode on DB Cooper. Okay, and there's a ton of it. It also goes to, obviously, as you know, I've already decoded it, one of my favorite movies of all time, which she pre-planned. She also stalked this actor, Leonardo DiCaprio, okay? Leonardo DiCaprio is also a Scorpio, okay? So she stalked him all of his life also. So anyway, he starred in the movie Basketball Diaries. This is one of my favorite movies of all time, okay? So when I first watched it, I was literally bawling at this scene. It still makes me cry. I still can't watch it. When he is going to his mom, he's addicted to drugs, and he's going to his mom for money, and he's banging on the door, please let me in, please let me in, and his mom is got the door open with the chain, and note the chain, okay? And she's like, I can't let you in, I can't help you. And he's crying at the door, okay? So and this is before I started I started decoding 10 years ago. This movie has been out for a long time. And this movie kills me because all I can see is myself when I was a little girl begging to be let back in the house. Okay? Gene Roberts used ice. Note Gene Roberts' sense of humor there. Used ice on me and my mom and Jeff when I was little. And it's a traumatic event in my life. I don't live in any of the trauma. I know that Gene ice raped me and my mom and Jeff, and I charged Gene with what I always charge her for: abusing children in child abuse rings and committing terrorism, and thinking she's going to profit from it and get away with it, which is what she's trying to do present day. She's trying to run a racket. Okay? So, now, in the regular viewpoint, from my mom and Jeff's position, they were being the regular parents that they were. The 70s is not 2026. Okay, where everybody's just ushy gushy mushy and let your kids run wild and do anything. hook him up with Charles Manson and let him just go torture the piss out of everybody and become one of those kids from The Girl Next Door. And by the way, you know Gene committed that crime too. That's a true story. That movie is a true story. That crime, Gene committed that crime too. And she ices children and she abuses children. And she's got a huge mother fetish. The movie is horrible, and that's what she's trying to do to me, present day, trying to silence me from making reports against her. So, again, back in the 70s, kids didn't wear seatbelts. Back in the 70s, we sat in the back of pickup trucks and cruised around town. Back in the 70s, you got your ass whooped. That's how it was back then. So anyway, they were angry with me because I kept wetting the bed. They didn't know what to do. They were at wit's end. Gene was using ice on me to wet the bed. I had a horrible bedwetting problem when I was little. And nothing would stop it. Which prompted my mom to even take me to the doctor to get the doctors to help. And that's when Gene put an implant in me using a catheter. And I don't know how she went about doing that with the doctors, but that's been inside me since that point. And I believe I was 6 or 7 years old, maybe a little bit older, 6, 7, or 8 years old. I was little. My mom was at her wit's end. She was doing everything she could, and she got really pissed at me. And Jeff got really pissed at me, and they said, "You're sleeping outside." And out on the sun deck I went with the sleeping bag, and I slept outside all night long. They wouldn't let me in. And I sat and stared at the stars and cried and bawled till I fell asleep. And then I had to wait till they woke up the next morning to let me in. And I was crying at the door, asking to be let in. I was freaked out. I was terrified. Now, at the same time, in the 70s in California, remember the sun deck is a box. It is a square. At the same time in California, when Mario was little, my first husband, she pulled the same stunt by ice raping Mario's parents. So what she did was, I imagine, because I don't know the conversation that ensued between my mom and Jeff, but I imagine with Gene's fetishes, she ice raped our dads, is what she did. And then in my instance, my dad was probably, Jeff was probably like, lock her outside. And my mom probably didn't want to do that, but she went along with him to spare anger and fits and everything else. So it's probably what went on. But Gene was using ice on my parents, and Gene was using ice on Mario's parents. So she used ice on Mario Sr., and she did something horrific to Mario and his brothers regarding a box in California when they were little, which makes me bawl my freaking eyes out. The same thing was happening to both of us. I was in Arizona, he was in California. So there's a whole bunch that goes on around the sun deck, okay? So I decode not just this instance, but everything on the sun deck. My mom and Jeff barbecuing on the sun deck where they were making shish kebabs. So everybody knows. So I decode all of this. So there's all kinds of stuff that's going on here with the sun deck, okay? It's a theme in everything in her pre-planning to do the World Trade Center attack in Oklahoma City bombing, okay? And I am exiled for it. Everything is my fault, and Gene is the blonde bombshell that the world has been waiting for. That's what's going on today. That's what she pre-planned. Okay? So anyway, the Basketball Diaries So the sun deck, it also goes to D.B. Cooper. Okay, my third grade teacher's name was Mr. Cooper. He was my teacher. Mrs. Johnson was my teacher. He was my PE coach. And remember I told you one of the things that we had to do when we went to go do PE is he would get out a giant parachute and we would all grip our little hands and it would kill my fingertips. I hated it. I hated it. We would hold on to the parachute and we would all spread out in a circle. And then we would put bean bags on the parachute and then wave our arms and the bean bags would go flying everywhere. And then sometimes we'd lift up the parachute and then we'd sit under the parachute in a giant parachute tent all in a circle. Now, Jean is ice raping my PE teacher, Mr. Cooper. She's arranging all of my teachers. But you can see the occultic ritual that's going on here that she's using by icing all of us, okay? So, anyway, so this movie, The Basketball Diaries, when it comes out, I see this scene. Now, let me go back to Globe again. The Iran hostage crisis of 1979. Now, I decoded a bunch around my childhood in the 70s. She pre-planned in her whole Charles Manson and her Synanon, the Synanon occult, the Dietrich occult. Okay, they're all together. Okay, they're like an occult of Alcoholics Anonymous is what they are. Okay, so, but they're not Alcoholics Anonymous, they're Synanon. Okay, so, anyway, so in the 70s, I remember, like, I decoded all of that. Like, I remember Jimmy Lopez coming home, someone that was held hostage in Iran. It was there was a parade, and I decoded all of that. I decoded everything. It's a very, very big, significant, this whole event is significant. So around all this time period, and you know that was all over drugs and guns and everything else. Okay, I decoded all of that. Well, you know that in the news. I'm sorry, she's controlling my speech. She is controlling my speech. And I know you can pick up on the tone changes where she uses sometimes she makes my tone sound all like, yeah, okay. That's her messing with my audio. And then if you hear like a condescending tone or something coming out of my mouth, or like a whatever, like that kind of tone, okay, that's her controlling my speech as I'm talking. So you can tell she's trying to control my speech. Okay, so anyway, so she pre-planned me to be addicted to drugs in the future, way back then in the 70s. Okay, I decoded it, and then I worked it back by decoding, and I first decoded it, and then I went back further in time, and the back furthest in time I got with her planning to do that to me in the future was in 1976 with my swing set. She was using my swing set on 11th Street before we moved to Easton Cottonwood, the one where she iced me to walk into the blue swing. And then note the blue swing, later Breaking Bad comes out. And then what's popular that's like one of my favorite shows of all time, the blue meth. But anyway, so she ices me to walk into the blue swing, crashing in my front two teeth, and I decode all that, and I figure out she's using Alice in Wonderland as a theme, and she's crashing my two front teeth, and my mouth is bleeding and all of that, and I'm like running into the house crying, my mouth is bloody. She iced me. There was no way that was possible. with the trajectory. She iced me, and I decode all that, and she's using my incisors as a sign, future sign of her pre-planning to do the World Trade Center attack. Okay, so anyway, so and in third grade, so the parachute, okay, so you know about DB Cooper. If you've watched anything on DB Cooper, you see how instantly DB Cooper escapes from a parachute. My dad also sends me a picture around 2000. He gave it to me before then. He met Walter Cronkite when he was in Vietnam. He also gave me this crazy picture of him in a parachute. I thought it was crazy. Well, I was like, I just put it with all the family pictures. But he probably just gave it to me, and didn't realize he was being stalked, and he was, like, in a relationship with the woman who tried to frame him, which I was about to find out once I got to Slidell. But anyway, so when I was living in Tulsa, after I split up from Ben, I had a Pinterest account. It's not the Pinterest that I have now, Christina Station 918. I had a Pinterest account, and on my Pinterest account, on the feed that shows up, you know how like you can browse your feed and all different Pinterest come up? On there, she was messing with my feed, and she was floating all kinds of different pictures to it. And I'm like, who is screwing with my phone? Like, everything about my life is hacked. My phones are hacked. Like, I can't even be on Pinterest. My Pinterest is hacked. So she puts in a picture of Leonardo. I could not believe this. I'm like, what in the ever living effing hell? She puts in, I was pissed. I was like, what the hell is this? She puts in a picture of Leonardo DiCaprio as like a young teenager with the parachute behind him. And I'm like, what the heck is this? Like, she's putting all kinds of weirdo ass shit on my phone and floating on my Pinterest feed. Like, she still does that to this day. She puts all kinds of like memes on it, like she's talking to me and she's threatening me and she's gonna get away with this and da 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 da. She does all kinds of weird crap. So I don't pay attention to my regular Pinterest. I have a Pinterest and I use it to post stuff on, but like your floating news feed, I don't ever pay attention to that. Because she's got it fixed. So anyway, Leonardo DiCaprio starred in the Basketball Diaries. And also remember, I went to Holy Angels in 5th grade. So my mom moved me from East Globe to Holy Angels in 5th grade. And then Basketball Diaries comes out. And it's about Leonardo DiCaprio. And he is in a Catholic school. Okay. So the movie gets pre-planned, and I'm supposed to go back in time. So the first time I see the movie, I go back in time and I see myself crying on the sun deck. Like, I see myself in that kind of pain. And then I go back again in decoding, and I see myself as Leonardo DiCaprio again with a drug addiction, and my family saying, we're not going to help you. And I still feel and my family's really never done that. They've all helped me. But she probably pre-planned for that. My family has saved my life in my drug addiction. Literally. I go back and I see that she pre-planned for me to be on drugs, and then that goes with all of the ciphers in the 70s around the Iran hostage crisis. There you go. We planned for you to be on drugs, and there you are. You're addicted to drugs. And then now present day, her con cover-up, pretending that drugs is what she's into. And then she lies about me and runs her rackets and gets away with all of it. So what I take away from the movie is Leonardo DiCaprio. I know obviously, you know, you're being stalked by Gene Roberts and her Manson occult just like everybody else. What I keep is the original movie that is such a good movie. It is such a good movie. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. And I turn in Gene Roberts for stalking, terrorism, and trafficking. So anyway, all right, also, the stabbing, I was talking about how she iced me and she pre-planned to stab me in 8th grade. Okay, and she pre-planned that when I was in 5th grade, Jean Jernigan Roberts, and she used ice, running yet again another child abuse ring. And again, what would the knife be? It would be an instrument. So that also is links back to the 70s. AIW, I forgot to mention this in the last podcast where I was talking about this stabbing. Okay, her running a child abuse ring on me and my little friend Aaron, and then he stabbed me, but he didn't stab me. She stabbed me. She iced him. She was assaulting both of us using stolen artificial intelligence. So anyway, that links back to Amityville Horror, okay? She based my years in Globe, my grade school years in Globe. She also based my life on the Amityville Horror movie, okay? So when I was stabbed, okay, so in the Amityville Horror movie, George Lutz is in this one really scary scene where there is blood. He's trying to break into a brick wall, or he's trying to break, I think he's like in his basement, and he's trying to crash through something, and it's all bloody. There's blood everywhere. Okay, so, and then it shows up in, also, she puts this scene in, she knows I'll see it, in Julian Lennon's video, It's Too Late for Goodbye. If you look behind him, she's making a reference there also. So, when I was stabbed, okay, the blood goes up the same height as the blood on the wall from Amityville Horror, okay? So when she stabbed me and I was sitting on the floor in through the garage, and my mom and Jeff were trying to sop up all the blood everywhere, and it was all over the floor, and the blood was squirting from my wrist, and it was squirting all over the wall. It was squirting, it was dripping down the wall. It was supposed to be Amityville Horror. So I look back in time, and she's looping again. That's supposed to be Amityville Horror. So, okay, so also, somebody told me she was probably also making a reference, Holy Angels. She was probably also making a Navy reference, planning to steal my life in the future. She probably was using the Blue Angels. If you guys, I think that Blue Angels is Navy. They're the fancy flying acrobats, and I've gone to see them a couple of times. Also, where am I at? Also, in Julian Lennon's name, Julie, Juli, and then Len, Lennon. And then also, Michael Vick. She iced Michael Vick. I decoded the heck out of it. And then also, the hourglass. I have a note here. Okay, so the hourglass. So she flipped it sideways. Okay, so it makes the M. So for Scorpio, it also makes a V, and then it makes that venom, and it also makes the dog fangs and the saliva coming from dog fangs, you're going to have to see my decoded ciphers in my books, which is the dogs of hell. Okay? So, anyway, that's how she used that. So, you draw a line through it. The Scorpio, sacrifice the Scorpio, it makes a sideways hourglass. So, anyway, okay, so that is the end of this podcast.